Okay, we're looking at midpoint and distance. The entire front is midpoint, and then on the back goes into like a level 2 in difficulty of midpoint, then it finishes with distance. We are going to cover midpoint and distance. We're going to skip the level 2 degree in difficulty, and we will cover it tomorrow after your quiz. You do have a quiz tomorrow, about 10 to 15 questions of what's the slope from a graph, what's the slope from 2 points, what's the midpoint from a graph, what's the midpoint from 2 points, and what's the distance, okay? So that's the expectation. I'm going to give you a Delta Math assignment that is the practice for the quiz. So that's your risk-free way of practicing for the quiz before you take the quiz. You with me? All right. Look at the first part. We're talking about midpoint here. First of all, let's refresh your memory on midpoint. And the word is telling you what it is. It's a point in the middle. Really don't understand when people struggle with midpoint because the word's telling you, hey, it's a point in the middle of 2 things. Okay? So if you need to, make a note. Midpoint is a point in the middle. I just realized I wrote super small, and I'm really sorry. I wrote the phrase point in the middle if you can't see that. Before we dive right into the midpoint formula, let's just do basic, what's the middle of these 2 numbers? Okay, so that's what part A is. Notice it says, here's your 2 numbers, 0 and 10. What's the middle? 5. Right? Now, next, 5 and 15. You might think, ooh, not really positive. I'm saying if it's a bad day. Let's say it's a bad day, and you're just sitting there like, what's the middle of 5 and 15? What could I do to find it? Divide by 2. Why would I divide by 2? Yeah. Take your numbers. It's like finding the average. Do y'all know where your average comes from? Like your class average? It comes from all of your assignments, basically, essentially, divided by the number of assignments there was. That's your average. Okay? So if you look at 5 and 15, if you can't calculate it or visualize it, like if you can't say it or visualize it, then add it up and divide by 2. So if I added them up, I got 20. Divided by 2 means it's 10. Now you finish 3 through 6. So you're just adding them up and you're dividing by 2. As you're getting your answers, look up here and check it. And see if you got them right. Yeah? Did you get that?
Yes.
So you just add them up, divide by 2. That's all you do. Even the negative signs, like they get added, right? A visual, to help you understand the visual behind it, like let's say -5 and 13. I'm going to sketch a little number line right here. So let's say this is -5, so 0 would be about right there. And let's say this is 10, and this is 13. 11, 12. This is not drawing the scale at all. This is terrible. But anyways, so from -5 to 13, you're looking for what's the halfway mark. And if you add these numbers up and divide by 2, you're going to get that 4 is the halfway mark, the midpoint. So that's the visual behind it. Okay? Think of the number line. Okay, now that was probably a little too elementary, so let's go and let's switch it up a little bit. Part B is different. Part B is saying, hey, here's where you're starting, and here's the middle. I need you to tell me the other endpoint. So in terms of a description, like a visual, that means you have the starting, you have the middle, you don't know the end. Whereas before we were finding the middle, right? Can you describe to me a way to solve this? There you go. So if I know the start to the middle, then I know the distance between the midpoint and one end. So if I just take that and add it, I would find the other distance. Does that make sense? Or not? I'd find the other point from the same distance, because there it's in the middle. That means that this is equal to this. Well, if the gap from here to here is 10, right? Then the gap from 10 to the end is 10, so it would land on 20. 10 plus 10 is 20. If you want to draw something that would help, you would say to yourself, how did I go from 0 to 10? I added 10. So how do I go from 10 to the end? I would add 10 again.
So wait, you would add them,
Well, to find the gap, like to find the gap. 0 to 10 is really easy in your head. You're thinking to yourself, oh, just added 10. But you do need to add. You're adding. So from 6 to 14 means I added 8.
Yeah, I know, like, you know.
So then I'd add 8 more, and that would put me at 22. The nice thing is you could always confirm it by going back and adding your start and end numbers and dividing by 2. All right, so try this. Good. Sorry. Good. Keep going. Keep trying, so I can see your efforts. All right, let's check your answers. 45 to 42 is a difference of what? 7 plus 7. So add 7 to that to find the endpoint. Did you get 49? Check the others.
And this is how it's gonna get there, or she can
We have distance, which is really not bad. It's just kind of plugging it in. Now the next question says, explain how you decided your answers. We're not going to fill that in because it varies. Some people can visualize it. Some people can just do the math in their head. Some people need the formula. Doesn't matter which one you are. So we're not going to worry about answering that question. Now let's take, this was just finding the middle between two numbers, right? Now we're going to actually find the middle. I need you to take your pen. I need you, now we're going to find the middle between two coordinate points, which means it's not just two numbers. Now it's an x, y, and an x, y, right? So now we're looking at the coordinate plane. Okay, so come right here. Let's take some notes. What is midpoint? It is a point that, here's the formal definition, that divides a segment into two congruent parts. And here's a visual. Like if this, I'm going to do capital M for midpoint. It's cutting it in half. That looks bad. It's cutting it in half. Now, in terms of the formula for midpoint, I'm going to show you the formula. I want you to write it down. But then I need you to wrap your mind around what the formula is and not get caught up in the formula. Because it's the same concept that you just did at the top of the page. It's the same concept. It's just now you got to do it with the x's, then you do it with the y's. That's all it is. All right, so here's the technical formula. We're going to write MDPT for midpoint. You can't put M because M would be the slope. We don't want to confuse the two. So I like to just write either a capital M, because slope's always lowercase m, or I'll actually just abbreviate MDPT. All right, if we have two coordinate points, which means we're on an XY plane, right? We're on an XY plane. The midpoint is simply the average of the x's and the average of the y's, which means you take the x's, add them up, divide by 2. Comma, you take the y's, add them up, divide by 2. I want you to make a note. You're finding the average. That's it. You're just finding the average, just like you did at the top of your paper. Now, there's two ways that you could be asked for the midpoint. The first way is a graph. Okay? Well, there's two ways to do this. One, you could write the coordinate points and then apply the formula. Or, I'm going to show you a trick. I actually prefer this. If you're good with visuals and counting, you might like this trick. If I'm looking for the midpoint from here to here, right? That means I'm trying to find the middle of it, yes? Okay, in your Delta Math assignment, I don't know if it's going to do this for midpoint, but I know it's going to do it with slope. It's going to say, draw a vertical and a horizontal line. Draw the rise and the run in order to find the slope. And they just want you to click. They want you to click the mouse from a point up level to another nice spot on the graph. This is really important. I hope you're listening. If you look at this line and the grid behind it. For instance, if I put my pin right there, is that a clean point or is that a fraction? That's going to be a fraction. You can tell because it's just hovering in the grid on the background. Find a clean point, which means looking at it, I'm a little too close. Like right here looks clean, right? That looks clean. Do you notice how it's like every other one? Yes? I call them clean points, or pretty points. They're nice numbers. Okay. So on your Delta Math assignment, it's going to say, draw the rise and the run, and then tell me the slope. You click your mouse on a nice point on the line, then you click it again up until you're level with a nice point, then you click it again to get to that point. For midpoint, watch this. If I was to create a triangle out of this, I would go up, oh, I went too high. I would go up and left, right? Correct? Okay, I'm going to make those dotted actually. I go up and left. The midpoint is going to be halfway up and halfway over. Okay? So, count this. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, up. So what's halfway? All right, so I'm going to go 1, 2, 3. And now I'm going to come all the way over until I hit the line. Then I'm going to see if what I just did repeats exactly. How far over did we go? We went 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So it went up 3 over 6. Repeat. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Bingo. The midpoint will be where you can draw two congruent triangles out of the line. And to get the congruent triangle's location, you basically create the really big one and then just cut it in half. Okay? So the midpoint would be, in this case, 3, 2. Y'all see how I got that? The triangles should match. They should be perfectly the same. All right, now what if it's coordinate points? Then we're going to apply the formula. This is another one of those where I would probably stack them so that your x's are lined up, your y's are lined up, and you don't mix your x and y's up. Because if people, I've noticed that people tend to confuse their x and y's when they're written out like this. Because their eyes are going back and forth. What I like to do is I'll say, okay, it's 21 over 12. I'll come right here and write it underneath. And then I know I'm fixing to find the average between my x's, and I'm going to find the average between my y's. It's exactly like the top of your paper. Okay? But here's how you write it in terms of the formula. All right. So the midpoint is going to be my x's add together, -5 plus 21 all over 2. Just write it. My y's add together, 18 plus 12 all over 2. Then you're going to go to your calculator and you're going to type this in. Stay with me. Write this down. You'll go to your calculator and type it in. You can actually use the alpha y equals button and keep it in fraction mode, and it makes it a lot easier. I'm pulling up my calculator to show you. All right. So I have a really big fraction. You can only enter one of them at a time. You can't do both at the same time. So I'm going to hit alpha y equals. I'm going to type -5 plus 21, arrow down 2, and I get 8. Then I'm going to repeat alpha y equals 18 plus 12, arrow down, 2, and I get 15. So the midpoint is A15. I want you all to try to find the next one. Bless you.
I got a fraction.
It's okay. It's allowed. But it's a pretty fraction, so I changed mine to a decimal. Math. Decimal. So we're taking the x's. I'm going to mark this out and I'm going to put it right here. It was 2 comma negative 1. I do that so that I can keep my x's together and my y's together. We're not stacking them, subtracting. That's slope, right? But I am stacking them so I know, okay, these numbers go together and these numbers go together. All right, so we've got negative 8 plus 2 all over 2. Negative 1 plus negative 16 all over 2. Or you could write negative 1 minus 16, same thing. Plus negative means minus, right? Did you get negative 3 and then negative 8.5 or negative 17 over 2? Negative 17 over 2 is negative 8.5. Now, the next level of midpoint, we're going to skip for today because right now I just want to make sure you can master it the straightforward way. Tomorrow, after our quiz, we'll learn how to find that other endpoint if I give you the midpoint. We'll do that tomorrow. But we do need to cover distance. So for today, we're skipping this right here. Okay, and we're going to slide down to this. This is where a highlighter or a colored pen would be really helpful. Catch. Highlighter or colored pen. Ready? There we go. That's smooth. That was like really slick, Bailey. You just were like. Anyone else? I don't know which one's coming out of my hand. There we go. All right, catch. 10. The lid came off.
It's all right, Miss Holcombe. Never mind.
There you go. Oh! Sorry. Gracie, that was me trying to stop Ben from interfering. Do you need one? Anyone else? Need one? Anyone else? Alright. Here's what you need to highlight, and then you can get those highlighters back to you. This graph, I realize, is a little hard to see, and that's because I shrunk it down, trying to reduce paper. But this is saying right here, tell me what's the distance. Distance means the length. What's the length of these line segments? We're going to highlight the line segments so you can actually see them because they blend into the grid way too easily. A runs from here to here. B runs here to here. C, this is F, this is D, and this is E. So highlight those so that it's easier to count. And then I'm actually going to say skip over to 7, 8, and 9 and highlight the vertical and horizontal ones in that picture. So when we get to that question, it's already highlighted. You're highlighting the very next graph as well. And then as I walk around, just drop your highlighter felt tip down in the bucket.
Whoa, there again.
So hopefully that helps it stand out. All right, and then come over here and highlight that one and then that one. Hopefully that helps it stand out. Now what I need you to do, go back to this one. I need you to tell me the length of those lines. Well, it's just a matter of what? Counting. You're just counting. You're counting the units on the graph. I am. I should be. It's probably just a minute, thank you. Tip down so that way the ink will run to it and it'll last longer. Is that was your highlighter? Anyone else? All right. So like A measures what distance? A measures 7. Come on, y'all. You should be doing this. Just counting. A measures 7. Go count those. Take your pencil and count them. It might be easier to count my screen than your screen. Miss Reed!
Don't tell me you're the sub.
What?
Don't tell me you're the sub.
Don't tell me you're in here. That's gonna be your color students here.
I like her.
Suck up.
All right. Did you get that?
Yeah.
Okay. So if I give you a horizontal or vertical line and I say, what's the distance? Please don't sit there and try and overthink it. Just count, right? Okay, well, what if it's diagonal? Enter diagonal, meaning what if it's slanted? You can't really count it, can you? Because then you don't know exactly how long the line segment is. Enter the distance formula. I'm going to write it on the board. I want you to write it down, and then I'm going to show you a trick in the calculator so that it's not nearly as complicated as it looks. All right, here is the distance formula. It is a very long radical. It's parentheses x sub 2 minus x sub 1. You did. Close parentheses, I need to make sure you're good at it, where we're going with it. Close parentheses squared plus parentheses y sub 2 minus y sub 1, close parentheses squared. There is something you need to keep in mind. Distance is always what type of number? Positive. It's kind of like the concept of absolute value. Absolute value means how far are you from the origin, which means distance positive can't be a negative number.
Aren't you supposed to draw all of that?
No, not midpoint. Middle, distance, right? You with me? Middle, midpoint, distance. All right. It says horizontal or vertical distance. That would be those segments we just did. I want you real quick to write the letter. You got A, B, C, D, E, F. Write the letter of the ones that are horizontal. Let's make sure you know what runs horizontal. Then write the letter of the ones that ran vertical. Should be 3 letters for each. C, D, and B, E, F?
In the mirror. Look in the mirror.
Quick.
That's quick.
Quick.
They were
Ran that way. That's why you.
Alright,
probably across the hall. I used to walk.
go over here. Alright, go to this one. I need to show you, two problems and then I need to go. Look at number 10. We're jumping around. Go to 10. Find the distance between these 2 points. If you need to stack them so you know where your X's and Y's are, you can. You don't have to stack them. You could come underneath and label if you want. There's one way, or I'm going to pop over here to this one, or you can say -10, 5. I'm just going to write it under this one, and I'll mark that out. And so now I can see, okay, there's my X's, there's my Y's. You pick which way you like. Once you get them labeled, plug it in, okay? This is where you will have the formula. You don't have to have the formula memorized. So you're going to plug it in. We'll go back over here. The distance is going to be a giant radical. The formula says parentheses x2 minus x1 close parentheses squared plus parentheses y2 minus y1, watch out. Think of that GPS telling you, watch out, object on the road ahead. Because a minus negative is changing to a positive when you actually calculate it. All right, now you might be wondering, how am I supposed to put this in the calculator? One, you can type the whole thing. If you type the whole thing, you're always going to get a decimal if it's ugly. If it's pretty, it's going to be a pretty number. But if it's an ugly number, it's going to come out as a decimal. If I want y'all to show me 2 answers, I want you to show me what the number is under the radical, then I want you to tell me the decimal, okay? So how do you get the number under the radical without it jumping straight to a decimal? You type in just the part underneath. You type just this. Don't type the radical, and it will always be a pretty number. Every time. Every day. All day. Every single time. So if I type just that in, so parentheses 8 minus 8, parentheses, this is the squared button right here, by the way. Squared. Plus parentheses 9, I'm going to type what I see. Minus -7. Close parentheses squared. So I want y'all to write, okay, so the distance is the square root of 256. And then I want you to actually find the square root of 256. The way you do that is you push the second button. It's right here, directly in front of you folks. It's right here. It's the opposite of the square button. That one. And then just type 256. And then that's the second answer. Now, if it had been a decimal, we would round it to the nearest, like, 10. So 16. Okay? Every single one of these problems is the exact same thing. Every one of them. The difference right here is I didn't tell you the points. I'm giving you the graph. You would have to read the graph and say, oh, okay, well, what are the coordinates of E? E is where? Careful. A little hard to see. It's left 5, up 6, and F is what? 7, -8. Then you would apply the formula. So that's the difference. If I give you the graph, you have to read the coordinates first, then apply the formula. All right? Don't worry about additional practice on here. We will cover that after our quiz tomorrow. You can take this, I would keep it out, and you can go to Delta Map. I have it, I need to just hit the post button, and that's what you're gonna work on. You need a sheet of notebook paper. You cannot possibly do this in your head, okay?